everybody, if you're new to my channel, welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. Today I am doing my first impressions, mini review, and a little tutorial using the brand new Too Faced White Chocolate Chip palette. So the first thing I wanted to say is that I know this video is in theory a little bit late than everyone else's, but I wanted to start off by telling you the story of how I got this palette. So when I saw this palette, I immediately knew I wanted it. It's just pretty and sparkly and light and just super, super pretty. And by Too Faced and Mini, like all of these things had to have it. So Sephora was saying, oh, we're gonna release this on Cyber Monday, Cyber Monday, Cyber Monday. So they ended up releasing it like Sunday at like 4 p.m. or something. I was totally not expecting it. And then they released the palette, and of course I was off, like doing whatever. By the time I heard about it, it had already sold out. But it was in stock on the American site. So a few friends wanted me to order them as well, but basically the next day I logged into the American site, ordered 4 of the palettes, shipped them to my friend in LA, Ashley's place, who I'm going to be staying with again shortly. So I shipped it to my friend in LA. When it arrived, she then mailed it to me in Canada, and then it was Christmas. So this is really the first time I've had a chance to play with this palette. The other thing, I guess, that because I was able to watch everyone else's reviews before mine came out, it really made me question the purchase. A lot of people had a lot of not so nice things to say about the palette. So yeah. Anyways, so I've seen a lot of less than flattering reviews on this palette, and with that in mind and with me having had the chance to use it, I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts on the palette and who it might be good for. So let's just take a look at the palette first.
I've been wandering in the dark with a cynical, faithless heart. I've been watching the kings and queens caught up in careless dreams. Oh, and you turn.
So now that I've applied Too Faced Shadow Insurance on my lid, I'm going to be starting off with this large shade right here, Glaze. Now something to keep note on this palette, none of the shadows have names on this side, they're all on the back here. But we're going to be starting with Glaze, and I'm just going to be using my Quo shader brush.
Somebody turn my luck. I'll give love to the world, I'll stay true to my word.
Using my Sonia Kashuk blending brush, I am going to go in as a transition shade with this shade down here, which is Cake Batter. And I believe Cake Batter was in one of their holiday palettes, but I'll have to double check that. If I'm right or wrong, I'll put a little comment in the video. And so I'm just using this as a nice light warm transition color.
We'd be queens and kings of everything. I could gaze at the stars, take my rocket to Mars. We'd be queens and kings of everything.
I'm going to deepen my crease using this shade right here, which is Cookie Dough. Again, using the same brush. This one has slight little gold sparkles on it.
I bet my heart on you. Queens and kings of everything.
Going back with my shader brush, I'm going to apply this shadow up here, Exotica, under my brows. Now, I thought they already had a shadow named Exotica, but I thought it was a different color in one of their 9-pan palettes, so I'm going to have to check that. So far, this is my favorite shadow in the palette. It's so shimmery. And to finish this look off, I'm going to apply this pink one here, which I believe is Raspberry Rosé, on my lid. Again, using the shader brush. So as you can see, very light colors, lots of shimmer. But let's address the first thing that really took me by surprise with this palette, the size. This is what the full-size chocolate bar palette looks like. And I was expecting the palette to be about this big. So there is the size comparison. But when we open this up, you're seeing 10 small shadows and 1 larger shadow. Now, I was expecting that the shadow pans would be the same size as in the original chocolate bar, only that there would obviously be less options. There you can see the shadow pans in comparison to the other. So I kind of wanted to start off by saying the #1 way this palette could be improved, in my opinion, is if they had just had 8 shadows. So you would have had 2 rows of 4 in here, which would be approximately the same size as the full-size palette, and having less color selection. So in particular, Ambrosia and Cake Batter are incredibly similar, and you probably don't need Exotica and Indulge. There's probably other rooms for kind of paring down. I would also even argue that Cookie Dough is a little too similar to Cake Batter. Just one has shimmer and the other does not. So yeah, I guess that's my first criticism of the palette. Now, I personally didn't really have a problem with the pigmentation. Of course, this palette's not incredibly pigmented because it's very light shadows. Now, because I'm really pale, I found the shadows to be fine for creating just a very pretty, wearable daytime look, which is what is on my face right now. If you're looking for something more intense, obviously this is not the palette for you. And if you have a darker skin tone, I'm just not sure if the lightness of these shadows would be the best on you, just because they're not too pigmented. But as someone who is super, super pale, I found them to be quite flattering. I also really appreciated that Sugared Raisin and Cake Batter, which were in some of their holiday palettes, were included because I thought their shadows were really pretty. Yeah, so what else can we say about this palette? Definitely small, a little bit really too small, like it's the size of my nail, to really get your brush in there, which can make it a little bit difficult to use. I would argue that this palette does not lend itself well to creating a large variety of looks. But if you're looking for something easy that you can't really mess up and you know you're not going to go too dark, I think this palette does have some value. In particular, I think it could be really nice for maybe a younger girl who's just starting off with makeup, and maybe you're her parents and you're buying her, or an aunt or an older sister, and you're buying her makeup, but you don't want her to create a look that's too out there or too dark, in which case I think this palette could be really good for her. One of the things I like about this palette for me is that it's really easy to create just a flattering work look, and I feel like if I was going to have one use of this palette, it would maybe be sorry, my nose is itchy. It would maybe be to leave it in your desk at work if you maybe didn't have time to do your makeup that morning and just wanted to put on something. So for the swatches, it's really too awkward to hold my arm up the whole time, so I'm going to just swatch them quickly and then show you. All of them will be swatched ×2 with no primer, no base, and using a clean finger. So looking at these shadows, Ambrosia is a really nice, almost a pinkened brown. Exotica has a beautiful shimmer to it, although I'm pretty sure they have a shadow named Exotica in one of their 9 pans. And Pearl Candy is a really nice shimmer. I also was really impressed by Indulge, and as mentioned before, Cake Batter is one of my favorites. Black Sugar is quite interesting because it's a black matte, but it has some shimmer or glitter to it, which I think is quite unique. The differences in the shadow don't show up well in the pan, so whereas Cake Batter and Ambrosia do look similar in the pan, they are different shadows. I don't think both are necessary in one palette this small, but they are different. As usual, I find that the metallic-y, kind of, not the glitter shades, but the metallic sheen shades that Too Faced makes are their best formulas. Now, my understanding with this palette is that it will be coming back in stock later this spring. So if you have the palette and you're not loving it, that's okay. If you have the palette and you like it, great. And if you don't have the palette and you're kind of on the fence, I think it really just depends on what you expect out of the palette. This is not a super shimmery palette that's going to create all sorts of dark and vampy glam looks, obviously. And this palette may not be the most flattering on other skin tones, although I'm sure there are other YouTubers with different skin tones who have reviewed this palette, so you could maybe see if it's a better fit for you. I will say that for me, as a very pale person who for work enjoys just a light, shimmery, professional look, I think that you can achieve that in this palette. I think it's great for beginners and maybe younger girls who, you know, you don't want their makeup to be too much. And I think they could do a lot of exploring with this palette, just kind of learning how to better apply eyeshadow and formula and things like that. At the end of the day, if you like a product, great. If you don't, that's okay. I don't think this palette necessarily deserves all the negativity it's gotten. So yeah, anyways, there's my review. I did buy this palette with my own money. I know Too Faced is generous and sends me a lot of different things, but this one I purchased with my own money. And I think, like, the best advice I have is when this palette comes out in store, don't knock it before you swatch it. You know, if you're not sure, I'm sure it will be in store. Go into the store, swatch it, see if you like it. I know that I'm very often reserved when I'm buying palettes. For example, the Master by Mario palette, everyone was hyping it up online. It wasn't until I swatched it myself that I decided to buy it. So all I'm saying, I guess, with this palette is to keep an open mind, and when it comes back in store, just go swatch it, and if you like it, great, and if you don't, no worries. But I don't think this palette deserves all of the negativity it's gotten. It is tiny. I will say it's tiny. I did not expect it to be this small, but I was fairly happy with the shadows that came on the inside. And I think it'd be really cool if Too Faced made a full-size palette using this shade range in the chocolate bar, like the original size. So anyways, I hope this review has been helpful for you. And I hope that when the palette comes back in stock, just check it out in store. And if you don't like it, no worries. Thank you so much for watching this video and for staying with me this long. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I hope you enjoyed the swatches and the video, and I hope that you found it helpful. So thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Mwah.